Cancelled.
Schweezy.
All right, folks, so it's time for me to do a movie review. It's been a couple weeks, and they will be every couple weeks because doing a movie review is hard, and it takes a lot of work out of me. And so, because it requires me to watch, put down my notes, go over the plot, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of work, but I hope you appreciate them as much as they deserve. So this week I decided to go over the movie Heavyweights. It's about a fat camp, considerably. Now, I know what you're all thinking, those of you who are not new to the show. Are you just going to be making Micah jokes this entire segment? No. We are aiming higher than that this week, folks. Because I could realize how old that gets really fast. It's like a Micah fat joke is funny every once in a while, but the pray for Micah joke is always hilarious. Now will always be hilarious, just being like pray for Micah. So that's good. But nevertheless, though, it doesn't help. So I'll keep this in mind. Micah says he was a fat child. I don't know. I didn't meet him until I was an adult. But however, I was kind of chubby, like 4th, 5th grade, 6th grade to 7th grade. I kind of had my final growth spurt, and I grew, and like I actually was in very good shape. But then I just started eating pizza like every day, and then I became an adult, and that was not healthy. So I'm always like worried, conscious about my weight. And Micah says he was a fat child, but Micah's not morbidly obese. It's just we're friends. So if you talk shit about Micah, I'm going to go, headstrong, I'll take you on. But nevertheless, though, I could not stop imagining, like, the main character, Jerry, is Micah as a child. Like, I could not. Like, that's how I imagine him as a child. And I could not get that out of my head. But that's going to be the last point I talk about Micah in a movie about a fat camp. Anyway, so no more fat jokes about Micah. So let's get into the movie. It all revolves around a kid named Jerry. However, I watch with subtitles because I like to have the sound. I don't know. I don't want to really disturb my neighbors. And also it's just kind of like sometimes I mishear words. It's just a weird thing. So I always just like to just know what the word is. So I always like subtitles on my movies. But it's Jerry, Gerry, and they didn't really explain it, like why it was pronounced like Jerry, where it could have been Gary. But then later you learn his name is Gerald, which I've always had like a weird thought with names, because my Christian name is Samuel, but my parents would call me Sam, and then when I was a baby, Sammy, which was always weird. And then my brother's name is Matt. His full name is Matthew, but like going through like baby videos, it's like they always called him Matthew, but they always called me Sammy, which was like a weird thing. It's like there's like formal nickname, informal. So I would say with Matthew's the formal, Matt is the nickname, Maddie would be the informal, and then Samuel would be the formal, Sam would be the nickname, Sammy would be the informal. So right from the beginning, my parents didn't think I was formal. But no, so the movie starts with, Gary coming home from summer break, getting ready to start his summer. And then his father, George Bluth, is somehow in this movie, comes with another guy with a tape to Fat Camp, which shows Fat Camp. It's a video that is starring Frank Costanza from Seinfeld, Ben Stiller's actual father, Jerry Stiller. Rest in peace, buddy. Hope they have Festivus in heaven. That's what I'll say here. But Jerry doesn't want to go to Fat Camp, but his parents force him to. So that's how it is. Just like, I don't want to go. I'm refusing to go. Then it cuts to him on the plane. So then on the plane, Jerry meets Kenan Thompson. Could not remember his real name in the movie, so we're going to refer to him as Kenan. And Kenan's like, you going to Fat Camp? Just imagine being like a fat guy on a plane, just going up to random fat children and being like, you going to Fat Camp? Just be like, yeah, how'd you know? You're fat and you're a child on a plane. Is that your dad? No, that's just another fat guy. But anyways, like Kenan's very welcoming and very charming, like normal Kenan Thompson. And so Jerry's like, okay, maybe I like the guys here. Maybe this won't be so bad after all. And so they eventually meet, was it Pat? He's the bus driver who's also fat, but has been at the camp for like 15 years. So now we're going to get into a lot of like body jokes in this, this topic. I'm not saying I'm in the best shape, but at the same time, like, I would assume like a fat camp actually works if the people are skinny, I don't know. I mean, we're walking on eggshells here, folks. That's actually a song by me on your streaming platforms. But anyways, no, they meet Pat. He's pretty cool. And like everyone likes him. He's in the chipmunk cabin, so everyone knows. So they eventually make it to camp, and Pat's like, here, Jerry, I'm going to help you introduce you to Chipmunk Cabin, which is the legend cabin. And so basically they walk in, he sees all the people in his cabin, and where he meets, I think the kid's name is Josh, which we all know is a stupid name. But I'm going to be referring to him throughout this entire review as Joey Diaz, because he's like a small version of Joey Diaz. He's like, hey, what's going on, cocksuckers? And, they meet Jerry, meet Joey Diaz, and they're like, okay, maybe these guys are pretty friendly. And, they automatically accept him into the group, which is really cool. That's really wholesome. Like, kids, and that's one nice thing about kids sometimes. Like, sometimes they can be very welcoming to you. And, like, you're welcome. You're in the club, man. Welcome, man. Here's your new community. And sometimes they can be dicks. But we're not talking about dick children, because all these kids are cool and a little fat. And so then, like, the plot moves forward. Jerry's like, hey, I snuck some Oreos into the camp. And then Joey Diaz is like, oh, really? Okay, everyone knock out. And then everyone pulls out their candy and hides them in their little, like, hiding spots. Like, they have, like, all these multiple different hiding spots throughout this entire camp. And so, that's like, so you can know from the beginning, like, none of these kids are losing weight. They've been here multiple summers and are still a little chubby. Which I want to get into that a little bit later as I go through, because I think I did write something about chubby children. So eventually they go to the little presentation, like their welcome to camp, I assume, presentation. I worked at church camps. I've never worked at a fat camp. So I know they have a little presentation. They go over all the rules, like no smoking marijuana or drinking alcohol on during this week. And then me as a staff, I'm like, damn it, do I have to stay sober this entire week? Anyways, no, they're wearing Schweezy appropriate windbreakers. If you're schwoke, you have one. And they announced that the kids love Frank Costanza and the other woman, which I don't know who they are. But they introduced them to because I guess they applied for Chapter 9 bankruptcy. Apparently you can just go broke and be like, you know what, I'm bankrupt now. I declare bankruptcy. I don't know how bankruptcy works, to be honest with you. Okay, and so they introduced the new owner of the camp, Tony Perkis, played by Ben Stiller, son of Frank Costanza in real life. I actually wrote actual son of Jerry Stiller. Good for me. Apparently, like, the very first scene, this came out in 95, so still a little dated. It was dated for the time, I want to say. He points to the black kid. I guess he's saying what people can be one day, and he specifically points to a black kid. I'm not sure if it was Kenan Thompson, but it was another black kid at the camp. I assume there was more than one black kid at the camp. I remember, there was another black kid, but he didn't have any speaking lines. Kenan was the only speaking line in this movie. Okay, and then he specifically, like, you're going to be the next president, you're going to be the next blah, blah, blah. And then he points specifically to one of the black kids. He's like, you're going to be a famous rapper one day. It's like, Jesus, dude. That did not age. I'm not saying it aged well. I don't think it worked for the time. I really like the joke is, like, if someone makes, like, a somewhat racist joke and in the point that it's funny and everyone understands it, I guess it could work, but I was like, ooh, that did not age well. And he's like, I'm going to whip these kids into shape. And then little Joey Diaz is not impressed with everything he does. Then we're introduced to Lars, who takes over for Pat in the chipmunk cabin. So Lars is German, and I'm assuming he's a Nazi. And now, I'm not saying that he's a Nazi just because he's German. I'm saying because he's a bitch. And we all know that all Nazis are bitches. And I guess the German part does not matter in the situation. But, God damn it. Why does my nose itch? It literally itches every time I do this fucking podcast. He tells the kids, I have a deviated septum. And I'm assuming he has a deviated septum because he's a bitch. And so they're like, if you think I'm dying in my sleep, I am not. And then none of these kids get a good night's sleep. So we get to the first day. The kids start doing intense workouts. And I'm saying intense workout for small children. And maybe also me. Maybe a little too intense for me. I'm a little bitch when it comes to the Ring Fit Adventure on Nintendo Switch. Apparently he's trying to create like a program for this. Like he really wants these kids to lose weight. And then I also wrote down once we got to this point, I think a fat camp for kids is a little stupid. Just because with like children, well, I'm just gonna go with myself. Like when I got like kind of like pretty chubby in like the 5th grade, then I grew, and then like I was decently skinny until I started eating garbage every day for I don't know, like 10 years. And pound came on. I know it really came on when I moved to Nashville because I was like working fucking desk jobs, sitting down all day, drinking every night. Not that I don't do that anymore. But yeah, it really like ramped up when I moved here. But like no, with kids though, I feel like I don't know if a fat camp is necessarily a good idea for children, just because their bodies aren't necessarily fully grown yet. So because sometimes like kids get really chubby and then they grow, and the reason why the body put on so much weight was because they knew there was going to grow. That's why like kids are like hungry all the time too. Like they're just like eating all the time. It's because their bodies are growing. That's why. And then when you get to an adult and you're like, my body's growing, just not the way I want it to. So I don't know. Leave a comment below for your thoughts on that. Like, what about fat cans for kids? Because I don't think that's a good idea. I actually think like maybe for adults, like spend a week or something like that. Like you learn a lot, like understand nutrition, understand how like exercise, like do a little exercising, like just kind of understand how to move forward. And it's like, okay, we finished the week. We're no longer like forcing you to do these workouts. Now we wanted to prepare you for how you're moving forward in like your health. So really to like move forward with your health, like you kind of need to keep some things in mind, like be mindful of the food you eat, be mindful of your exercising, mindful, like just try to move in general, like simple mindsets like to change. Cause I really think, just for me at least, like I've gained a little bit back during the pandy because it's like I'm not going to bars, meeting women. But I also think though at the same time, like I've changed a lot of my mindset, just realizing like, hey, that giant ass thing of ice cream? That's an every once in a while thing. That's not like a every day after you finish your meal, here's a dessert. Like I feel like dessert should be at minimum once a week. So that's it. So that was kind of my rant on like fat camp. I don't know if it's a good idea for kids, but I think like with adults, like make it more of an educational retreat type thing. I think it could work really well. And so moving on. So the kids are swimming in the pool, the lake or whatever. And Lars, they have a hot nurse. Like the only woman at this entire thing is the hot nurse. So it's just like, hey, I'm a hot nurse working at a fat camp. And so Lars decides to hit on the hot nurse, and she easily rejects him because being ripped is not attractive to ladies. You gotta be a little thick to get with the ladies these days and in 1995. And also, like with women, I've noticed like you don't necessarily have to be like a 6-pack guy. You just have to be what I like to call for a real ride or die, which is an EP by me out now. Funny and safe. If you're funny and safe, women will like you. And do not call them big-titted animals unless you are married. that's a whole different story. And that's also easily a reason why Lars has no friends, and it's probably the reason why he got buffed. Now, I made statements in the past multiple times saying an idea that if you have an ugly... I've seen a lot of guys with ugly faces, and they get super ripped to make up for their ugly faces. And I'm not too worried about that. I've been called handsome many times by women other than my mom. So miss me with that bullshit. So Lars has got buffed because he has no friends because he's a bitch. Okay, and then we get to the scene. Okay, this is a part of the movie I have a huge problem with. So they have like a competing camp. Now this is a fat camp, and this competing camp is like a sports, like professional sports camp with like people who are going to be like big athletes one day. So they are like, we're going to do our annual baseball game. And it's like, what the hell do you think is going to happen here? You have a fat camp and a professional athlete camp. And you're like, they're going to compete against each other. Like, what's the fucking point of this? It's like, it's two similar camps competing against each other. That makes a lot of sense. You know, it's like an annual thing. It's a lot of fun. But you know, when like fat people, like people who are going to a camp because they're out of shape and they need to lose weight versus people who are trained their entire lives to be good at sports. We're going to make them compete against each other. And like, they get their asses whooped. What the hell did I say whooped? They get their asses whooped, obviously, because they're not trained in any sport at all. That's the thing. I don't know why like they thought this was a good idea. Apparently this is like a yearly thing. And no, they do this all the fucking time. So fucking stupid. They obviously get their asses whooped, not whooped, whooped. And it's just a fucking stupid thing. I don't get about this movie why that was part of it. Okay, and then later that night, Ben Stiller's raiding the cabins for any junk food and shit like that. And so they find it one under like the bunk bed, like top thing, Lannister thing or whatever. And like they pull it up, it's like, aha, hidden candy. And I'm like, aha, not gonna get that. And then some fucking narc who's like, I was in this cabin last year. I know where they hide their candy. And then he pulled out like the big stash hiding spot. And it's like a huge stash of just candy, like huge stash. And then probably one of my two favorite parts of the movie. So Ben Stiller's like, who's the supplier? Who's the supplier here? Who brought all this candy? And then little Joey Diaz comes up, like, I know who supplied it. And he's like, who is it? Seymour Butts. And like in a classic 90, this joke is not old yet fashion. Ben Stiller's like, Seymour Butts. Who's Seymour Butts? Who has Seymour Butts? Who is Seymour Butts? And then everyone's laughing because he said Seymour Butts instead of Seymour Butts. And that is hilarious. And then, for some reason, little Joey Diaz is missing the next morning, and no one knows what happened to him. So that's weird and unexplainable. So there we go. That was unexplainable. So then Tony, a.k.a. Ben Stiller. I kind of wrote Tony and Ben Stiller in my notes, so we're going to go back and forth between those two names, folks. So now he starts to terrorize the entire camp and just makes it basically Auschwitz. Basically, like I just said, Joey Diaz is missing in this film, and no one knows what happened to him, which is very scary for a small fucking child who is just gone missing, because there's a lot of lawsuits there, which we will get back to in a minute. He kills the blob, which, party foul, bro. And because even with the blob, like, they're still getting exercise in. They're jumping and swimming around, like, it's good exercise. And then he closes the go-karts. Why? Because he's a bitch. That's why. But then we kind of see Judd Apatow's character in full swing. I thought this was one of the Trey Parker from South Park, but it turns out it was Judd Apatow. Apparently, back then, they were twins. And Judd Apatow is a cameraman, and he's all the time, he's like smoking and drinking from a flask. Like, he's just vibing the whole time, and it's very fucking awesome. Then we get to the little summer dance. So they're like, I guess Tony's idea was like he was trying to embarrass them into losing weight because the girls didn't want to be with chubby boys. So the movie kind of starts, like your old standard movie middle school dance, where boys are on one wall, girls are on the other wall, no one's dancing. And then, who was the guy who helped him out here? I can't remember who was the guy. What was the guy's fucking name? Paul Feig or something like that. Yeah, that was his name. He's like, I'm going to get the dance started. So then he starts dancing by himself on his own. And then he convinces like all the other fat kids to dance with them on their own. And then the girl's like, you know what, we'll dance with the fat kids. And then, but all these kids have like good personalities. And so I feel like a lot of these women would not care. I would just enjoy having a good time with them. Like they're not doing that. But anyways, the boys are dancing with the girls, having a good time. I'm assuming some of these guys are going to get to finger these girls. Great time. And I know what some of you are thinking. You're a grown-ass man. Why are you talking about kids fingering other kids? I'll put myself in their shoes for a second and be like, if you're underage and they're underage, I don't know. Just assume I mean good and I'm not into any of these kids. Okay? That's all I ask of you, because I'm not. So shut the fuck up, and I will punch you if you think I am. Anyways, they're about to start fingering these girls, and then Tony decides to be a buzz fucking kill and ends the dance because the kids are going to get some, and that's not cool. In any circumstance whatsoever, for any reason, no matter who you're with, what you're doing, anytime, anywhere. And so this is the moment in the film I learn that Tony sucks, because if you're about to get some and someone stops that, they suck. But then, later that night, Joey Diaz returns to the camp. And he kind of makes some jokes, shit like, oh, I'm a zombie. And then he's like, I'm normal. And then he's like, turns out my dad is a lawyer and threatened to sue. And so they let him back into the camp very easily because they kicked him out of the camp for making fun of Ben Stiller. So I'm not sure. That's why I assume the lawsuit is, but we're going to assume it's a movie. So I shouldn't care. So then they decide to get their candy back. So they break into Tony's office, led by Joey Diaz, and kind of getting everything in there. And they're trying to steal the candy back. But then they learned that he poorly photoshopped all the kids skinny. Poorly photoshopped, very bad. Poorly photoshopped Jerry on a skinny body, which is very funny. To me, at least, and to no one else. And my nose is still itching. I don't know why. And they also learn that the mail is being hidden from them, which is illegal, because I don't think you're allowed to do that unless it's, like, prison. I'm assuming, like, only in prison they can, like, stop they'll review your mail, but I think they'll still send it if nothing illegal is going on. It's usually just, like, people, like, talking very emotional shit. But anyways, after that, like they almost get caught, but they don't. So yada, 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 everything moves on. But they find one boy is sneaking food into camp, which interests all the other kids. And so they have like a, not a drug dealer, but like a junk food dealer, which like burgers and shit like that, sneaking into the camp, stuff like that. So they have a dealer who's doing that, which I have to imagine would be the perfect summer job for a child. You know, like if you're like, say you're like 16, 17, and your job is sneaking junk food into a camp, like you charge a little bit on top of it, so you make a little extra on it, and you buy them the food, shit like that, yada, yada, yada. You're actually going to make a lot of money. You could make a decent amount, like a summer living off that. Like their kids are paying a lot for that shit. Goddamn, I'm itching my nose. Why is my nose itching when I guess I don't talk this much out loud. In the week, it's always in my head. So they singing the food. So basically, they're not losing any weight. So they get ready for their first weigh-in day. They discover, and basically they're weighing everyone. No one has lost weight. They've probably gained weight in this movie. And that's when I learned that Jerry is short for Gerald. FYI. So Ben Stiller's like, you know what? I'm going to make everyone, we're going to do a 20-mile hike tomorrow. Which is probably intense for anyone who's not trained in hiking and is not white, which means Keaton Thompson is going along for that. So, Pat tries to stick up for them and like he's talked down to, but they learn that he is a complete psycho in the movie. And So the normal adults at the camp are like, you know what? Let's devise a plan. Maybe we should call child services, because or Paul Feig has a lawyer friend they could look into. But I guess the child services person won't come for like 2 weeks. But Paul Feig's lawyer is like, we need evidence before we can really do anything, according to my lawyer friend. Which, I mean, this makes a lot of sense. But conveniently then, Judd Apatow, the cameraman, says, hey, have you all seen Tony? He owes me $600 for all the filming he's did. And they're like, okay. Well, now we have a plan for taking Tony down. So then Tony goes full psycho and jumps on a tree limb, dangling over a cliff. Where you're like, you want to look like me? You want to look like me? But no, that's not my Tony voice. Have you ever seen $10,000 before? That's Tony. That's because I get it from Dodgeball. You want to get a body like me, jumping on over here, swinging back and forth across this tree branch. And I actually learned that Ben Stiller probably got really ripped for this movie, which is really funny. And then so they're like, okay, let's take an hour for meditation, come back. And then the kids trick him, we have to have some sort of a plan. And so I guess they trick him saying if you can't see your hair, you aren't doing a push-up right. No, a sit-up right. And then Tony's like, yeah, I could do a sit-up, and so close his eyes. And they're like, 1, 2, 3, and then he goes his head up, and he's straight into Joey Diaz's ass, and he's like, kiss my ass. So they go on a chase, yada yada yada. Tony falls into a giant hole. And then somehow off screen, they were able to tie him up and bring him back to the camp and put him in a cage tied up. But then later he's untied in an electric cage, so there's some problems there. And so Pat's being an adult, you can't tie someone up and then hold them in a cage. And then Pat's like, I'm going to get ready to release you. So he he rips off the mouth, Pat, when I get out of here, I'm going to kick you square in the nuts. I'm like, okay, yeah, say that to bite the hand that feeds you. So he puts it back on. I'm like, all right, we're going to keep him here. And then the camp is returned to its former glory. All of Pat's lackeys are tied to a tree with honey on their chest, and they're all scared of deer, which is very funny. But yeah, it's all returned to its former glory. Jerry even records a message to Tony, my second favorite part of the movie, saying he has a skinny wiener, which is a very funny insult. Because we always talk about you have a small dick, but we never say you have a skinny dick. It's a very unique insult, and I really like it. And I love that. So the kids are all going hog wild. They order a ton of food. They overdose on just eating junk food, and it's great. And the next day, Pat's like, wake up, everyone. You saw how you did last night? We're not going to do that again. We're going to make sure that we're going to get together. And I guess he gets it with the hot nurse. And I hope he gets fat camp sex, because I've never heard about that much. And so they're all actually working towards actually being healthy. And that's a good thing, because I feel if you're going to be at a fat camp, we should focus one part on having fun and one part on actually losing weight and trying to live a healthy lifestyle so you actually lose weight, because that's how a fat camp should work. Flash forward, everything's going good. And it's the parents' weekend. All the parents are there. George Bluth, I guess Joey Diaz's parents are there. And they show a video to see how bad Tony was. All the shit he's been doing the whole entire movie. They even added a scene of Joey Diaz eating a rat. But nope, don't worry. Tony escapes because he offers the British kid a Hershey's Kiss and locks him out, and he escapes. And Tony makes it to the cafeteria. After everyone's watched the video of how he's abused children, and then he threatens to fight everyone at the camp. And George Bluth is like, I'm not taking this shit, and then just punches him straight in the stomach, and he falls immediately to the ground. Yada, 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 things happen. And eventually, Tony's dad comes to the camp, which is also played by Ben Stiller, but it's funny. He's like, just because I was never hooked up as a child doesn't mean I abuse children. Shit like that. I'm like, okay. They're like, all right, we're just going to close the camp for the summer. Please don't call your lawyers. And they're like, but we want the camp to stay open. They're like, who's going to lead? Pat's going to lead, of course, obviously. And Fat Camp is saved by Pat. So, nevertheless, we move to the Apache Trials. Again, that jock camp. Which makes no sense that they're competing against a jock camp. a fat camp versus a jock camp. That makes no sense at all. So, like, you know, they do all these trials. Like, Joey Diaz is, like, shaving a balloon because he knows how to shave because he's, like, 10 and shaves or whatever. And then they get to the intelligence section of it, and the jocks get owned. And then it ends with Jerry in a go-kart race. He also gets knocked off the track, which I don't know if that means, like, a disqualification. But he ends up back on the right track, so I guess okay. I guess in this race you can take shortcuts if you find the shortcut. But then at the very end, he pulls a special trigger, which gives him insane air, which is probably not possible or in the budget for Camp Hope. And he finishes the finish line, winning first place. And Camp Hope wins. The jock camp polls a Republican and is like, oh, we want to protest the results because they weren't in our favor. But, like, also Camp Hope doesn't give a shit. So they just threw it in the leg and they're like, we gotta get our trophy back. We gotta get our trophy back because we have small penises, and our victories are the only reason we can win. Because I assume sports people have tiny penises. It's just who they are. Hey, man, I play music, and I'm fine with my penis size. You play sports and are not fine with yours, and that's what you have to do. And that's how the movie ends, giving Jerry the best summer of his life, even though he was abused half of it. So now I got to go with my final thoughts on this. Let's go with the first thought. None of these children lost any weight this summer. That's the thing. I assume though, like, these kids are mostly sent against their will. The other are like, I love this camp. This camp is fun. So none of them lost any weight. Now, I went to church camp basically my entire life until I moved here. And I even worked there too. And I came out of there like a different mindset, you know, about Jesus and shit like that, and my life and everything. But yeah, none of these kids lost weight this entire summer. They were just eating cheeseburgers the entire summer, getting snuck in. Tony doesn't get charged with child abuse now. His dad's like, please don't sue. And apparently that's enough reason for him, like, okay, I won't sue. And then none of the kids get charged with kidnapping Tony, which was probably, I would assume, X outs the child abuse claim. Because, hey, your kids did something illegal, and my son did something illegal. So let's not sue each other, and let's live life. So that actually just made sense to me right now in my brain. The movie ends with maybe these kids are going to be healthier lifestyles. I looked at the guy who plays Jerry in the movie. He's actually looking pretty good right now. Kenan Thompson, I wouldn't say he's fat, but he looks healthy. And those are the only two who were fat technically in the movie. But that's all I have to say. But I want to end this with somewhere in Hollywood, someone had to put out a casting for, hey, agents everywhere, do you have fat children actors? If you do, they would be perfect for this movie we're about to cast. We're wanting to make a movie about fat children at fat camp, and we would like your fat child to audition to be in this movie. And I want everyone to be thinking about that for the rest of their lives. And that is my review on the Disney movie Heavyweights. So thank you. Next. Well, hey there, Schwokelord. You just finished a full clip from the show. I hope you liked it, and I hope your brain cells don't hurt. If you want to check out more, we got more links here. We got full episodes, more clips, and the best of everything. Thank you so much for watching, and subscribe, and like this video if you enjoyed it.